better daily, where we work hard in our minds, bodies, and our spirits to become 1% better every single day. Download the app and join our Betterment family at betterdaily.life to catch the video version of these podcasts. Here's your host and my dad, Alex Van Houten.
What's up, Betterment family? This is Alex Van Houten in Better Daily Live. Happy Tuesday. It's Nutrition Tip Tuesday, and we're going to go through something from a nutrition perspective that will help you on your 1% better journey. Good morning, Pat. Good to see you this morning. Safe travels, by the way, to the Smokies. I'm just about this much jealous because the Appalachian Mountains are beautiful. I hope you guys enjoy yourselves there. So today we're going to talk about apex predators. You're like, wait, what? Today's title is You Are What You Eat. And I have a specific reason for that. First, before we get there, it is day 10 of the Faithful 40 Challenge. We are 1/4 of the way through the Faithful 40 Challenge, and I am so proud of every single one of you who have made a commitment post every single day. There have been a couple of you who missed a day, and you're like, oh no, here's what happened yesterday, and here's my commitment post today, and I salute you. You guys are doing a fantastic job. We are entering the grit phase. I call it the grit phase for a number of reasons. Grit's a very special word to me, but this is the phase of the Faithful 40 Challenge where most people fall off the wagon. Most people start out strong in the first 10 days of the Faithful 40 Challenge. They're ready. Their goals are in the forefront of their mind. They're making progress. They're starting to see changes. I think Robin said he's lost something in the neighborhood of 10 pounds since the start of the Faithful 40 Challenge. High five, Robin. Way to go, man. Good morning, Scott. Good to see you this morning, man. But so that's great. There's momentum, there's motivation, there's excitement, right? But the grit phase of the Faithful 40 Challenge is I need you to stick with it. I need you to have endurance and consistency to continue this thing forward. If you can make it from day 10 to day 20 of the Faithful 40 Challenge, if you can do that, that's the grit phase of the Faithful 40 Challenge, then you will stick with the rest of the Faithful 40 Challenge. That has been my experience in doing this. This is our 8th time. This is our 8th triannual Faithful 40 Challenge. So that said, hang with me, keep up the good work. If you need some encouragement or some direction, please reach out either to myself or many of the other veterans in the Faithful 40 Challenge. If you're in the app, you can see the little blue badges. You can see F40 Challenge. These are people who have completed the Faithful 40 Challenge, and this isn't their first rodeo. So if you need to reach out to any one of those people, especially the ones with the encourager badge, that's a new thing too. But these are the people who will high five you, slap you on the butt. We're joined by 2 of them this morning. Pat and Scott are amazing encouragers in old hat with the Faithful 40 Challenge. So, but I promised to talk to you about apex predators. You are what you eat. Okay, so I really just wanted an excuse to tell you my fishing story. I'm just kidding, kind of. It's really what I wanted to tell you. Today we're going to talk about how what we eat accumulates in our bodies over time, and I'm going to use my fishing story as a springboard because I have to tell it. I got to tell it last night. If you missed our prayer and Bible study time, man, you missed out. You could probably catch the recording. I think it's processed and uploaded where it needs to be in the app. You can catch that in the Connect group. But if you missed out, never fear, we'll do another one next month. We were reading a book of the Bible, discussing some highlights and takeaways, and then praying about something specific. And last night I got to tell my fishing story. I'm going to tell it again here. So Kristen got home from what was she doing? I guess she got home from the gym with Bennett yesterday, and I was working, and she goes, hey, it's overcast. Doesn't that mean it's good fishing weather? I said, yeah. She's like, I'd love fish for dinner. Can you go fishing? I'm like, yes, this is every man's dream. There's many things that men dream about, but one of the things every man dreams about is his wife to come home and say, hey, you should go fishing. Get out of here. Go catch some fish. I'm like, yes, let's do it. So I'm out there and I'm fishing and I'm catching, 1 and 2 pound bass and stuff. These make really good eating, as we say in the South. They make good eating. And you can fillet those bad boys and put them in some butter, and they're so good for dinner. Well, I'm fishing, and I'm fishing with a MEPS 3, by the way. It's my spinnerbait of choice. Pat says fishing, if his wife kicked him out to go fishing, that would be a nightmare to him. Oh well, maybe not every man's dream. Anyway, so I'm fishing and they're biting and it's great and it's beautiful. Like the sun is right behind the clouds, but it's a nice warm day. The water's cool, so it's not like overly hot. I'm in waders. I'm in water up to my chest here. And it's such a nice time. And I'm peacefully fishing and I'm praying and it's so good. And then oh my gosh, this it's like a monster hits my line and I pull back. And I don't know if you fish much, but immediately if you have a big fish on or not. Like some of them are small and they're fighters, and that's kind of fun because they're jiggling on the end of the pole. I pulled this thing and it was like I hit a tree, but the tree was moving. I was like, whoa, that's a big fish. And so I'm reeling and it's, my drag set. So it's pulling my line out and I start reeling a little more and I'm pulling in and fighting it a little bit. And I'm like, wow, this is a really big fish. And it breaks water. That's what they call it when a fish comes up out of the water so you can see it. Breaks water about 12 feet in front of me. And I I said some things that are close to unchristian. I was like in the middle of this pond and I said, holy crap, oh my god. And because its head was as big as my head. This thing was huge and it came out of the water right in front of me. It was just this sense of awe, almost like fear. Like, do I really want to reel this fish in? What do I even do with a fish that big? And so I'm like reeling. I'm like, I'm going to catch this fish. Stay on here, buddy. Stay on here. So I'm like reeling to the, Scott says, Jaws. I know, Donna. I'm standing in the water. Like I've been standing in the water with this fish the whole time. I didn't know this fish existed in here. And so I'm pulling and I'm bringing him to the shore and stuff. And I get it. Well, it's actually her, by the way. We'll talk about that in a second. So I get her to the shore and I don't have a net with me. I didn't expect to catch a fish big enough to require a net. I can usually just, put the pole on and undo the hook and all that. But I'm like dragging this thing to shore. Well, it gets to shore and its head flips hard and snaps my line right on the shore. It's right up against the shore and my line snaps. I'm like, oh no. And so I throw my pole in the water and I grab the fish and I'm just holding it against the side of the ground there. So I put my hands under it and I chuck it up onto the shore and it rolls and it's flopping around like, no. And so I got a knee on it and I got the finger in its mouth. It's still got my lure right there. And I'm like shaking in the weeds, like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So I called my wife, FaceTime her, look at this fish. Well, on a phone, it doesn't look that big. So I had to show her with it beside the fish that we would be eating this evening. And then she's like, oh my God. So it turned out to be a 28-inch, 18-pound largemouth bass. Just insane. I've been fishing a lot and I've never caught a fish that big. So all that to say, she goes, are we going to keep this fish? And I said, no, you can't keep this fish. And she's like, why not? We could eat that for like 3 days. And that's true. Like, there were some big steaks on the side of this fish. I said, no, you don't want to eat this fish. There's a couple of reasons you don't want to eat this fish. And that is what I'm going to teach you today. The first reason is ecological and pond management. Okay. It's an apex predator in this pond that I was fishing in. That means that big fish on top, the big kahuna, this 15-year-old, 16-year-old largemouth bass has been chomping fish for many, many years. And an apex predator puts a lot of pressure on the breeders downstream to make more babies, because that's what feeds the apex predator. And so if the other species of fish or the other lineage of fish want to continue, they've got to make more babies. And so if you remove the apex predator, if I would have put this on my wall or killed it or whatever, then what would happen is there would be less selection pressure, less pressure on the breeders to keep making fish. And so there are actually less of those 1 and 2 pound bass that we like to fry up for dinner. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is when an apex predator eats lots of food for a long period of time, a lot of toxins actually begin to accumulate in that predator. And that's what we're going to talk about today. You become what you eat. If you are eating things on a regular basis that have a lot of toxins involved, you begin to accumulate those toxins. I'll talk about those sources of toxins in a second. But for our fish analogy, the mercury is one of the heavy metals that accumulate in fish. mercury is in smaller fish, and as the bigger fish eat the smaller fish, the mercury tends to enter the fish but not leave it as quickly. And then the further up the food chain you get, the heavier the mercury concentration gets. So you don't want to eat a lot of these really big fish that have been around for a long time and are old and stuff, especially in a runoff pond next to the house, because they tend to accumulate all of the yuck over the many, many years. And I've heard they don't really taste that great either. The 1 and 2 pound bass, they're a year old. They taste fantastic, but those big giant ones, not so much, right? And that's a good object lesson for us, because we are exposed to a lot of toxins on a regular basis, generally in our foods. So here in the US, there are a lot less regulations around a toxin called glyphosate. Glyphosate is something that we use to kill weeds. It's a weed killer, it's an herbicide. But it's also used in food production. And here in the US, we have the highest concentrations of glyphosate in edible foods than any other country. A lot of people don't know that, but that's a hardcore toxin that can actually wreak havoc on our microbiome. This is one of the reasons I believe that there are some individuals with autoimmune problems that tend to do really well if they shift their diet more toward animal products, because glyphosate doesn't accumulate in milk or meat, or it tends to accumulate in things like corn and wheat and whatnot. I don't know. Do you guys remember that? Remember that kind of craze where everybody was going gluten-free, because celiacs and gluten intolerances and stuff? It actually might be more the case that they were experiencing the benefits of removing glyphosate-laden foods from their diets. So by reducing wheat and by reducing corn, or reducing some of the more processed, the heavily processed foods that they were consuming. Wheat was the reason they did it, but the byproduct was actually the reason that they saw positive results. They saw things like 10 pounds of weight loss in a week, or 20 pounds of weight loss in 6 months. What happens is if you remove some of those toxins from the body, and the body gets an opportunity, if you remove the nutritional source of some of those toxins from the body gets an opportunity to filter those toxins out of your system so that you can operate without it. And many of those toxins that we accumulate over time, they are fat soluble, which means our body requires more and more fat to accumulate in order to keep the concentration of those toxins low. I'll put that all in layman's terms. If you are eating foods that are high in things like pesticides, herbicides, or like our fishy friend, if you're eating fish that are really high on the food chain, like tuna, for instance, very, very frequently, then you can actually accumulate some of those toxins unto yourself. And over time, that can be really problematic. I talked about how heavy the concentration of mercury could be in a 15-year-old bass. Well, most of you, all of you, I think all of you listening are over 15 years old here. We've been accumulating toxins all our life. And so the more often we can consume foods that are relatively low toxicity wise, the better off we're going to be to support our body over time. Some things you can do to support that. A good strong fast could be really helpful for you. A day here and there, or maybe a longer 3-day fast, can be really helpful. Drinking lots of water, maybe some bone broth, can be really helpful to giving you the support that you need. You don't have to do this crazy detox stuff, okay? Alex Van Houten has not jumped off the wagon of Amazon detoxes, because your liver does a lot of good work all by itself. All you have to do is support it and not add toxins to your system. And then also steering away from some of the more heavily processed stuff. So your top offenders are corn and wheat, really. That's where we use the majority of glyphosate and pesticides here in the US. But taking a break from those things for a period of time can be really helpful for you. Eating some of the more in-season vegetables and fruits, buying your meat local when possible. And I don't know about you guys, but price of meat around here in the grocery stores is so high. It's a lot cheaper to go to my local butcher, or even a local farmer, and purchase, chicken or beef or pork that has been raised right nearby and not on a feedlot or something like that. So you are what you eat. You become what you eat. And we've talked about that in terms of the building blocks, the fats and the proteins that we consume on a regular basis. But I wanted an excuse to tell you my awesome fishing story and God's gift with this. And my takeaway was so fun. I was praying about some things, and I caught this fish kind of interrupt my prayers and stuff. And the message to me was, the casts that caught me, those 1 and 2 pound bass, were no different. Same lure, same line, same pole, same spot, no different than the giant monster fish that I'll probably never catch one the same size ever again in my whole life. It was the same exact cast. It was the same exact spot. It was the same exact lure and line. And God's message to me was, continue being faithful and I'll do the rest. So whether you take away that you're an apex predator and you need to watch out for the mercury consumption, the glyphosate and pesticides that are accumulating in your system, and be mindful of that in your food intake, or if you need to take away that you need to keep showing up faithful and let God provide the big fish, well, I'll leave that to you. Guys, this has been Alex Van Houten on Nutrition Tip Tuesday in Better Daily Live. Thank you so much for joining me. Tomorrow will be Wednesday, and we'll be joined by a member of our community to talk about their wins from previous Faithful 40 challenges and what they're doing now. Until then, it's just 1%. You got this.
Thank you for joining us for 1% Better today. Don't forget to subscribe for the podcast. Leave us a raving review to tell others how Better Daily has helped you in your journey. If you want more Better Daily, download our app and join our Betterment family at betterdaily.live. Use code POD to get 25% off your subscription. That's POD, all caps, to save 25% on your subscription. We all have a cross to carry. It's lighter when we do it together. Go to betterdaily.live today.